doing better, Sonia? Oh, that's good. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to celebrate Shabbat with you. It's wonderful to celebrate Max's bar mitzvah with you. It's going to be an exciting and wonderful day. I ask that if you're able to do so, please rise. We're going to begin on page 103 with Birchot HaShachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan לנו vivina להפגין בין יום ובין לילה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בצלמו. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני בן חורין. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שעשני ישראל. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam פוקח עברים. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam מלביש ערומים. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roga haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamekem et tzedek gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asa li kor tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten la'ev koach.
Please be seated.
Hutenenu hayom uvechol yom lechein ul hesed rakamim beineka uvenei koroenu v'tzimul hasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael.
We're on page 105.
Ashreinu matav chelkeinu umanayim goraleinu mafayiru ishatenu. Ashreinu she'anaknu mashkimim umarivim erev avoker ve'omrim pa'amayim b'chol yom Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. Atahu ad shalom ne'barach ha'olam atahu. Kadesh et shimcha b'neshei shemecha v'kadesh et shimcha b'lomecha. Uvishuatcha tarim takbia karanenu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh et shimcha barabim.
On page 107, we have an opportunity to study a passage of Torah together. Afterwards, we'll say Kaddish de Rabbanan.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. 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 לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה, בדברי תורה, וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה, לעסוק בדברי תורה, בדברי תורה. גדול התורה. Kishim Chiki Karashin or Naila Kemlo. Yehi Ratson Minafanecha Adonai Eloheinu Velohe Avotenu. Shiti Ten Kalkena Batoratecha, Venimito of Shalom Gohen. Ohev Shalom Rodev Shalom. Ohev Riotum Korvan La Torah.
Once again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us as people continue to come into the sanctuary. Perhaps you can help us out. If you notice, everybody, all of the males in our sanctuary are wearing kippot, so whether you're Jewish or not, make sure you grab one from the foyer. If you see people coming in who may or may not know, you can help them grab a kippah from the foyer. If you're a Jewish male, make sure that you get a talit from the foyer as well. We're going to continue with Kaddish de Rabbanan on page 111. Mourners and those observing a yortzeit, please rise.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yemechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'izman kariv ve'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Leila min ko berkata v'shirata, tushbekata v'nechamata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imru Amen. Al Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan, ve'al Tamidechon, ve'al kol Tamidechon, ve'al kol man da'askim be'oraita, di ve'atra hadain v'di b'kol atar v'atar, yehei l'chon uchon shlama rabba, hina v'chizda v'rachamin, v'chayin arichin u'zuna revicha, U'forkanami kodama v'hon v'ishmaya v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei shalom v'romav hu barachamav ya'asei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
We're on page 112.
Tov lehodalanay lazemer shalom yalari b'bogeres dech havinakam b'layla dalea sorva le'nabel. Ve'atamarom le'aloranay kilim. Tzadik atamar yifrak yivin mizgesh. Hojinim b'seiva d'shenim ranimiyu. Lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuriva lo avlatabo.
We continue on page 120.
Mizmor shir Hanukkah. Fakta mispinu lekoli patakta sakivdas reni simcha le margus volo yidom ranai Elohai leolam odecha.
The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 121. Once again, mourners and those observing a yortzeit, please rise.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yemechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'izman kari ve'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Leila min ko berkata v'shirata, tushbekata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. Osei shalom imromav, hu ya'asei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen.
If you're able to do so, please rise. We're on page 122.
Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch ze'breshit, Baruch v'yaseh, Baruch ze'breshit, Baruch atah Adonai melech ha'olam ha'el ha'avram v'yamo v'shevachot. Yahid He Ha'olamim, Melech Shabak Vadei Shemo HaGadol, Baruch atah Adonai, Melech Mahulal V'Tishbacho.
Please be seated, page 123.
Odu l'Adonai, Kinunu Mishmar L'Tav, Shimon L'Tav, Shiro L'Amir L'Tav, Zira Yisrael L'Tav, B'nei Kakov V'Kirav, Adonai Eloheinu B'Kol L'Tav, Zikru L'Nu 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 Lo haniach leishma. Shirun kol haaretz min shotzos. Ki kol hehamim elim varonai shamayim asa. Hod varon lefanav Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz. Horagi tov kilom hazdom. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu l'hakodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu v'hu rachum yakaper b'vol yashchit v'hirba l'hashiv v'pol v'gamatzo atzalon zechor rachamecha Adonai.
We're on page 126.
Adonai tzivahot asher moteach bach Adonai Hoshia Melech Yanenu Veyom Koreinu. Hoshia et Amecha Uvarech et Nachalatecha Urem, 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 Urem Venasem Rem Venasem Ad HaOlam Hoshia et Amecha Uvarech et Nachalatecha Urem, 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 Urem Venasem Rem Venasem Ad HaOlam Hoshia et Amecha Uvarech et Nachalatecha Urem, 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 Urem Venasem Rem Venasem Ad HaOlam Hoshia et Amecha Uvarech et Nachalatecha Urem, 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 Urem Venasem Rem Venasem Ad HaOlam Nafshenu Yitzadonai Zranihu Ozavli Meinu Ashrem Shekalo Ashrem Shalom Va'ani b'katzaka b'takti agel v'shuatecha Ashira l'Adonai ki gamal alai.
Please rise. We're on page 132.
Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chazo Hodu le'Elohei ha'Elohim ki le'olam hazo Hodu l'Adonai Adonim ki le'olam hazo Le'hosei orim gedolim ki le'olam hazo Et hashemesh lemem shelet bayom ki le'olam hazo Et hayareach v'kochavim lemem shelo b'layla Lemolicha mo b'midbar ki le'olam chazo Lemake melachim gedolim ki le'olam hazo Vayaharog melachim adirim ki le'olam hazo V'natan artzam nachala ki le'olam chazo Nachala le'Yisrael abdo ki le'olam hazo Einai nai 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 ki leolam hasdor. Noten lechem lechol basar ki leolam hasdor. Hodu le'el hashamayim ki leolam hasdor. Nai 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 ki leolam hasdor.
Please be seated. We continue on page 136.
Ashrei Yoshvevetecha od Yarelucha Sela Hashem Shekakalo Hashem Shadamai Elohav Tehila Levider Mimcha Elohai HaMelech Reshuv. Tehilat Adonai bepi v'varek b'sar Shem kodsho le'olam va'ed v'anaknu nevarek ya me'ata ve'ad olam hallelujah.
Page 141.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, El Bekodsho, Hallelujah, Berkiauzo, Hallelujah, Vigurotav, Hallelujah, Kerov Gudo, Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, benever vechinor. Hallelujah, betochu machol. Hallelujah, bemenim veyugav. Hallelujah, 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 betzilzalei shama. Hallelujah, betzilzalei trua. Hallelujah, betzilzalei shama. Hallelujah, betzilzalei trua. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol anshema tehalelia. Hallelujah.
Please rise.
Kol anshema tehalelia. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai tzedek Yerushalayim, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael, osei nifla'o levado. Uvaruch Shem kvodo le'olam, v'yimanei kvodo et kol ha'aretz, amen ve'amen. Vayavarek David Adonai.
We're on page 142.
Tzlech Adonai gedula v'hagivura v'ati forever and ever. Atahu Adonai ha-Elohim asher b'chartam b'Abraham ve'yotzeitu merkazdim v'tadeh shemo Abraham u'matzata levavon eman lefanecha v'charoti morbriti te'eretz v'yitzakatam V'hayam kata lifneihem v'yavaru p'takom b'basha ואת רודפי המשחת במשולות כמו אבן במים עזים. ויוש אדוני ביום ההוא את ישראל ממצרים, וירא ישראל ממצרים לא שפת הים. וירא ישראל הגדולה אשר עשה אדוני במצרים, וירם את אדוני, ויאמינו באדוני ובמשה עבדו. אז יושב משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני, השירה לאדוני כי גאה, סוס ורוקבו רמה וים, עוזי וזמרדיה, ויהי לישועה. עוזי וזמרדיה, ויהי לישועה. עוזי וזמרדיה, ויהי לישועה. עוזי וזמרדיה, ויהי לישועה. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. לה 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 לה. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
ותיקח מרים הנביאה אחות אהרון.
גילה אדוני המלוך המושל בגויים, והלמושים פרציון ישפורי סב. ויצר אדוני המלוכה, והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We're on page 145.
Nine, 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 nine. נשמת כל חי, תברך את שמך, תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו. Nine, 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 nine. V'Adonai lo yanum velo yishan, hamorer yishanim v'chakitz nerdamim v'masiach gilmim, v'hamatir asurim v'hasomech noflim v'hazokef כפופים לך לבך, אנחנו מודים ידעי די די די, ידעי די די די, ידעי די די, ידעי די די, ידעי די די די, אילופינו מרי שייך לשמנו, אין אנחנו זוכים לך לאלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו. ממצרים גאותנו אלוהינו ובבית אבותינו.
146.
אין כם ידעו כי קובל לך נודה. נהללך ונשבחך ונפארך ונברק את שם קודשך כאמור לדוד. ברכי נפשי את אדוני וכל קרובי את שם קודשו. האל פתעצו מרוזך, גדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח בין הרוב נורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא. שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו.
וכתוב רננון צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נאוות תהילה. בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמחלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך, מלכנו בכל דור ודור. שכן כל לבד, כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפעל, לרומם, להדל, לברך, להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירו ותשבחות. דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך לשמר. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות. הבוקר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים.
Please rise. Hatzi Kaddish is on page 148.
יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי ועמליק מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון וחי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר עמם ינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה, בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated, page 150.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יזבחו שעושה שלום. הכל ידעו חברוך וסל היוצר הכל, היפתח יום הן כרכך ואין זולתך, אבית ביתך ומדומה לך. הן כרכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בצדקה גאולנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה. גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו. המתגאל על היות הקודש, ונראה בכבוד על המרכבה. זכו למישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל. כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נאי זיווה מכוח העולם. שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים באימה רצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמור, תורה ורינה לזכר מלכותו. קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה. שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה. שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש. ניי 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 ניי. להל השש במלגו מעשים מיום השביעי תלווה. שיר ליום השבת עולה ללילה. תתבורק מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ואמר שעשית יפרוך הסלע. תתבורק צורנו מבוקנו גולנו בורא קדושים.
We're on page 153.
כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים בהם רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים אפיהם קדושה ותורה, בשירה וזמרה, מברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומריצים ומקדישים וממליכים. את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא הקדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליכם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש את מנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה מן הקדושה. כולם כחרונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. ואופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. לאל ברוך נמות איתנו, למלך הרבים המחדש בטובו בכל יום תאמין מעשה בראשית, כאמור לעושי אורים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
154.
אהרביו תנו לנו אלוהינו המלך לעולם. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך. ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש גם בעת כי בשם קודשך הגדול והגדול בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בקרתם בכל עם ולשון וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ואהבת את אדוני ושמתם את הברית
156.
ויהי שמו על עזותי אשר נתתי מטר אצלכם ויאמר אדוני אל משה אדוני אלוהיכם אמת ויציב לדור ודור הוא כמשמו קיים וכיסו נכון מלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיים את רב חיים.
We're on 157.
אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו יוצאנו תשועתנו בנו מצילנו מעולם שמך אין אלוהים זולתך עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם דור ודור בנו מלם משובך ורתק וצדק אמת אתה אדון למך ונעצור ראשון בדרך Yisrael Lotanu Eloheinu Rabbeinu. Alzot Shibachu Ahurim El. Tehilot Lelanion Baruchum Vorak Moshe Umeriam Bnei Yisrael Lechanu Shira B'Simcha Rabba Ve'amru Chulam מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Please rise.
צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ובדקנו מחייכות בישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
The Shabbat morning Amidah begins on page 159.
atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'Nechem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Ufoked Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Metim Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim, Someg Noflim Verofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Bichamocha Bal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Meimit, Umekayem, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah Chayot Meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaMeitim.
Amen. Yekadosh Hashem Ba'olam Kashem Shema Kashem Otel Bishmei Marom Kagatu Avayed Nevi'ek
Nekadesh et Shimcha Ba'olam, Kashem Shemakdishim Oto Bishmei Marom, Kakatuv Al Yad Nevi'echa, V'kara Ze El Ze Ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melo Kol Haaretz Kevodo. Az Bekol Rosh Gadol Adir Vechazak Mashmim Kol Minasim Leumat Serafim Leumatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Evol Adonai Mimkom. Mimkomcha Malkeinu Tofia V'timloch aleinu ki mechakim anaknu lach. Matai timloch be'tzion bekarov be'ameinu le'olam va'et tishkon. Titkadal v'titkadash b'tok Yerushalayim ircha ledor v'ador u'lenetzach netzachim ve'einenu tir'eina Malchutecha karavar hamor b'shirei uzecha al yedei David Meshiach tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai le'olam Elohai Tzion le'dor v'ador Hallelujah. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid kolecha, ulenetzach, netzachim, kedushatecha nagdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu, mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Ki hamelech gadol v'kadosh ata, v'kadosh ata. Ledor vador, nagid kolecha, ulenetzach, netzachim, kedushatecha nagdish. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue praying the Amidah silently, using the words of the Siddur to guide us through the private meditations of our own heart.
I can turn around. If you finish praying the Midah, please be seated. We're going to continue on page 167, Kaddish Shalem.
Yekra v'yira shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'amadi v'rakirutei ve'amlik malchutei v'chayekoni v'mekoni v'chaydeko be'Yisrael. Bagala u'bizman kari ve'meru.
Amen. Yehi shmei Rava mevorach, le'alam u'le'ol me'almaya, yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'arim amin aseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kedusha.
Brechu.
Le'ela min kol brakata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran ve'alma ve'imru.
Amen.
Kabbat salat tahonu v'u tahonu kol Yisrael kol dama v'honu v'shamaya v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalom rabbi min shamaya v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. O say shalom
Bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen.
O say shalom
Bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Lai la 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 la
Oh, say shalom
Bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. At this time, I'd like to call upon Emily and Marcus to please come up to the bima to present Max with his talit.
Amen.
May I please ask us all to rise as we join Max and his family.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Let us please remain standing for the service for taking out the Torah, page 168.
כמוך באלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, av harahamim, heitiva birtzona et Zion, tivnei homot Yerushalayim, tivnei homot Yerushalayim, ki veha levad betachnu, Melech el ram v'nischa Adon olamim. Vayehi bin Saharon vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai ve'afutzu oivecha ve'anusu mesanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzeh Torah ki mitzion Tetzeh Torah udevar Adonai mirushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato berich shemei de'amrei alma
Shmei de Maria.
Be'anarahetz ve'lishmei kadisha
Kadisha Yakira,
ana emar tushbechan yehe ra'ava kodamach detiv tach levivi be'oraita v'tashli mishalayim delibi ve'liba dechol amach Yisrael Letav ulahayim ve'lishlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadol Adonai Iti, Uromima Shemo Yachdav, Lecha Adonai Hagidula, Hagibura.
והתפארת והנצח וההוד, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ,
כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה והמין נעשה לכל לראש. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו לאדום רגליו קדוש הוא. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו לאדום רגליו קדוש הוא. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ידעי הנה מה טוב ידעי הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד.
Let us please be seated. אברח, המרחם עושים בזכור ביתנו ביצל נפשותינו מן השעות הרעות, ויגר ויצר הרע מן הנשואים, ויחון אותנו לשפליטת עולמים, וימלא משאלותינו, במידה טובה, ישועה ורחמים. So, Max, you come here. I know you've prepared very hard for this moment, and I usually have a problem with kids when they go too fast and when we can't understand what they're saying. Now, your Devartor is very good, and I know you like soccer very much, so I came prepared for you. If you go too fast, I'm going to pull out a yellow card. Okay? And then, of course, you know what happens next. And I don't want to have to do this. So I'm just warning you, because I don't know what else to do. I give them tickets. I mean, please. Okay, thank you. Hopefully you get the message.
Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat we read Parshat Lech Lecha, which is the third Torah portion in the book of Genesis. My Parsha starts when God commands Abraham to leave his birthplace, and in return God promises him that the land of Canaan will be given to him and his descendants. Leaving famine behind, Abraham takes his family to Egypt in search of food. Once there, in fear of his own safety, Abraham pretends the beautiful Sarai is his sister because they would kill him if they found out Sarai was his wife. The Pharaoh orders Sarai to live in the palace with him. Once Abraham acquires food and cattle, he reveals to Pharaoh that Sarai is his wife. God strikes plagues against the palace, and in punishment for the Pharaoh taking another man's wife, Abraham and his family return to Canaan, and he splits the land there with his nephew Lot. Later on, Lot is attacked and taken as a hostage by enemy kings. Abraham saves Lot and his family. Abraham and Sarai are unable to have a child, so Abraham has a child with their maidservant Hagar. Once Hagar gets pregnant, she starts abusing Sarai, so Sarai sends Hagar away. Later, Hagar is met by an angel who tells her to return with her son Ishmael. As the portion continues, Abraham is told to circumcise himself and Ishmael as a sign of God's covenant with him and his descendants for all of eternity. So why did God choose Abraham as the father of the Jewish people? Abraham was deemed worthy because of his dedication to God. In all of the tests that God put Abraham through, not once did Abraham disobey him. He also questioned the praise of idols. He followed God through the desert, even though he had no idea where God was going, and these repeated acts of dedications to God qualified Abraham to be the father of the Jewish people. Abraham was unique because he seemed to have understood God from the onset of their relationship. For example, according to the Midrash, Abraham rebelled against idols his entire life. He didn't understand how a star, or something made of wood or stone crafted from human hands, could ever create humans. He was even sentenced to prison for this belief. Abraham also smashed all of his father's idols, making his father furious, so he created a story about how an idol got mad at all the others and smashed them all. Abraham's father replied, saying that they are made of stone and wood and can't do anything. Abraham then replied, "How can you worship these idols that are unable to do anything?" There is a story in our Torah portion where Abraham, in effort to save his own life, asks Sarai to lie to the Egyptians and say she is his sister rather than his wife. Pharaoh sees Sarah and likes her, and he has no idea she is married. She is taken into the palace with Pharaoh, and God sends all these plagues to Pharaoh because he took in a married woman to be his wife. All of this happens to Pharaoh through no fault of his own. He even gives Abraham slaves, animals, and precious metals in exchange for Sarai. What do we make of this complicated episode? I think you should never lie. There may, however, be extraordinary, rare circumstances where one may cross the truth. For example, if telling the truth would be really harmful, it might be okay to lie. I don't think that it was right for Abraham to lie to the Pharaoh about Sarai being a sister. Abraham was practically giving Sarai to the Pharaoh for food and cattle. And what if the Pharaoh chose to keep Sarai? Abraham wouldn't be able to do anything. Another consequence of Abraham's lie was the curse of the plagues on an innocent Pharaoh who unknowingly took Sarai for his own. In this parsha, we come to appreciate the dedication displayed by Abraham that qualified him to be the leader of the Jewish people. We also learn that lying is not okay. We learn here that a single lie may take on a life of its own and have other unintended consequences. Finally, this parsha forces me to withhold judgment, or at the very least to seek to understand the historical context of Abraham's choices. This also relates to people who lie every day to hide their parts of their identity, like religion, gender, or immigration status, because they are afraid of their safety. As a now Jewish adult, I commit to making this world more just, to being a mensch, one committed to honesty and seeking to understand. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Max. Shkoyach. Before we begin our Torah portion, just a word of advice about the Torah reading today. Max was becoming a bar mitzvah in Israel last week. Of course, we couldn't go to Israel because of the closure of the country due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're going to read the Torah in a different way that we always do. We're going to read the first three aliyot are going to be from the beginning of the Torah portion, and then we're going to read the third, the triennial cycle, which we're in. So it's not we're skipping around and doing whatever we want, just that we want to make sure that we honor Max's study that he devoted himself to for the entire year. So the first three aliyot are from the beginning, and then we're going to go to the end of the Torah portion.
Also, if you have an aliyah this morning, we ask that you come up one ahead of yourself. So, for example, Michael has the first aliyah. He's already up here. As he's being called up, the second aliyah, please come have a seat up here, and so on and so forth throughout the Torah reading. Ve'azor v'gen v'hoshia l'chosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol Eloheinu unu kavod la'Torah yamod. Yitzhak Meir ben Yehuda v'fega golda rishon. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. V'atem ha'levikim b'Adonai Elohechem hayim kulchem hayom.
Baruch Hu es Adonai haborah. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam V'ed. Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'harbonu mikol ha'amim v'nosan lanu es Toraso. Baruch Ato Adonai nosein ha'Torah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Avram, לך לך מארצך ומולדתך ומבית אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך ואעשך לגוי גדול ואברך ואגדלה שמך ויהיה ברכה ואברך מברכך ומקללך האור ונבראו בך כל משפחות האדמה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nosan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam notah b'socheinu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Yamod Gershon Reuben ben Avraham Sheni.
Baruch Hu es Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charbanu mikol amim v'nosan lanu es Toraso. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Vayelech Avram. Ka'asher diber elav Adonai vayelech ito Lot. Ve'Avram ben 5 shanim ve'shiv'im shana betzeto maharan. Vayikach Avram et Sarai ishto ve'et Lot ben Ahiv ve'et kol rechusham asher rachashu ve'et hanefesh asher asu becharan. Vayitzu lalechet artsa Kenan ve'yavo artsa Kenan. Ve'ya'avor Avram ba'aretz ad makom Shem ad Elon Moreh ve'haknani az ba'aretz. Vayera Adonai el Avram vayomer lezar echa eten et ha'aretz hazot vayiven sham mizbeach l'Adonai hanir'eh elav. Vayaetek misham hahara mikedem lebeit el vayet achlo beit el mi'am v'ha'ai mikedem vayiven sham mizbeach l'Adonai ve'yikra b'shem Adonai. Vayisa Avram halo ve'naso ahanegba.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nosan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam notah b'socheinu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Our third reading is at the very bottom line of page 72.
Yamdu Abraham Yitzhak ben Yisrael ve'et bat Vorach v'chaya shlishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamtorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vehi ra'av ba'aretz vayered Avram Mitzrayma lagur sham ki chaved hara'av ba'aretz. Vayehi ka'asher hikriv levo Mitzrayma vayomer el Sarai ishto hine na yadati ki isha yafat mar'eat. Kir'u v'haya kir'u otach hamitzrim ve'amru ishto zot ve'hargu oti ve'otach yechayu. Imrina achoti at lema'an yitavli ba'avurech ve'chayta nafshi biglalech. That's it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam notan b'socheinu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amdu Moshe Abraham ben Abraham Yitzhak ve'eta v'chana Ruth bat Abraham v'Sarah Revi'i.
So now we're going to skip over to page 86 as we enter chapter 16.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch
Adonai Baruch
Le'olam
Le'olam
Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai
Sarai Eshet Avraham Lo Yalda Lo V'la Shivcha Mitzri Tushma Hagar Vatomer Sarai El Avram Hine Nat Sarani Adonai Miledet Bona El Shivchati Ulai Ibane Mimena Vayishma Avram Lekol Sarai Vatikach Sarai Eshet Avram Et Hagar HaMitzrit Shivchata Miketz Eser Shanim Shevet Avram B'Eretz Canaan Vatiteno Ta LaAvram Isha Lo LeIsha Vayavo El Hagar Vatahar Vatere Ki Harata Vatekal Gavirta Be'eneha Vatomer Sarai El Avram Chamasi Alecha Anochi Natati Shivchati Bechekecha Vatere Ki Harata Vaikal Be'eneha Yishpot Adonai Beini Uvenecha Vayomer Avram El Sarai Hine Shivchatech Biadech Asila Hatov Be'enayich Vate'aneha Sarai Vativrach Mipaneha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet b'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The Torah reading continues on page 87, verse 7.
Yamdu Chavi ben Mishka Velena V'menucha bar Avraham Yitzhak Ve'etach Hamishi.
Baruch et Adonai Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai L'olam Olam Vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Vayimsa malach Adonai al ein hamayim bamidbar al ha'ayin bederech shur. Vayomar Hagar shivchat Sarai emizevat ve'anatelechi vatomer mipnei Sarai gevirti anochi borachat. Vayomer la malach Adonai shuvi et gevirtech vehit ani tachat yadeha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're going to be continuing now with our sixth reading, page 87, verse number 10.
Yamdu Hershel ben Zeresh Ve'chavi Ve'baruch bat Zeresh Ve'chavi Shishi.
Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'tanan lanu Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer la malach Adonai har bar bet zarev la yisafer merov Vayomer la malach Adonai hinachara biladed bein. V'karat shemaho Yishmael Hishama Adonai el onyech. V'hu yefer Adam yado v'kol v'yad kolbo v'al penei kol echav yishkon. V'tikra shem Adonai hadover eleha ata el roi. Ki amra hagam halom ra'iti acharei roi. Al ken kara la be'er lachai roi. Hine ben kadesh uvein bared. Vateled Hagar li Avram ben vayikra Avram shem beno asher yelda Hagar Yishmael. Ve'Avram ben shmonim shana v'sheish shanim. Beledet Hagar et Yishmael le'Avram.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam v'natapetoni enu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. We're now entering chapter 17, top of page 89.
Yamdu Zina ben Ruvain, Vechana Rivka bat Baruch, Shvi'i. Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayehi Avram ben tishim shana v'teisha shanim. Vayera Adonai el Avram. Vayomer elav ani el Shaddai hitaleh lifanai beyehi tamim. Ve'nabriti beini uvenecha ve'rabeutcha bim'od me'od. Vayipol Avram al panav vaydaber ito Elohim lemor. Ani hine briti itach v'hayita liav hamon goyim. V'lo yikarei od et shimcha Avram ve'yeshimcha Avraham ki av hamon goyim nitaticha v'hifreiti otcha bim'od me'od untaticha legoyim umlachim imcha yetzeyu.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
We're now continuing on page 90, the third line, verse number 7.
Yamdu Shlomo ben Hershel, Elena bat Hershel, Mosa bat Hershel, Hosafa.
Amen. V'hakimoti et briti beini uveinecha uvein zaracha charecha lidorotam livrit olam liot lecha le'elohim uzaracha acharecha v'natati lecha uzaracha acharecha eretz megurecha et kol eretz kinan lachuzat olam v'hayiti lahem le'Elohim. Vayomer Elohim el Avraham, v'ata briti tishmor, ata v'zaracha rechat lidorotam, zot briti asher tishmeru, beini uveinechem, uvein zaracha acharecha, himo lachem kol zachar, unmaltem eid bisar orlatchem, v'haya leot berit, Beini uveinechem uvein shmonat yamim yimolachem kol zachar lidorotechem yelid bayit umiknat kesef mikol ben nechar asher lo mizarachahu himol yelid beitcha umiknat kaspecha v'haita briti bivsarchem livrihit olam Ve'arel zachar asher lo yimol b'sar latov nichrita hanefesh ahimei ameha et briti hefar vayomer Elohim el Avraham sarai ishtcha lo tikra et shema sarai ki sara shema uveirachti ota v'gam natati mimena lechabein Uverachtiha v'ayta legoyim malchei amim imena yiyu. Vayipol Avraham al panav vayitzchak. Vayomer belibo b'halaven mea shana yivaled v'im sarah habat tishim shana teled. Vayomer Avraham el ha'Elohim lu Yishmael yichya lefanecha. Vayomer Elohim aval Sarah ishtecha. Yoledet lecha bein v'karad et shemoho Yitzchak v'akimoti et britihi ito livrit olam lizaro acharav uyishmael shematicha hine beirachti oto v'hifreiti oto v'herbeiti oto bim'od me'od Shnei masar nisiim yolid untativ legoy gadol v'epriti akim et Yitzchak asher teled lechasara lamoed hazeh b'shana ha'acheret v'yichal edaber ito v'yal Elohim eyal Avraham v'yikach Avraham et Yishmael beno v'kol yilidei beito v'et kol mignat kaspo kol zachar b'anshe beit Avraham Vayahamal et besar latam be'etzem hayom hazeh ka'asher diber ito Elohim.
Amen.
We're now continuing on page 93, the second line on the page, verse 24.
Yamod Yaakov leben Haim Aharon.
Baruch Adonai Olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bo chabornu mikol ha'amim v'nosan lanu es toraso Baruch atah Adonai nosein ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'Avraham ben tishim v'tesha shana v'himolo b'sar orlato v'Yishmael beno ben shloshes rishana v'himolo b'sar orlato be'etzem hayom hazeh nimol Avraham v'Yishmael beno v'chol anshe beito yelid bayit u'miknat kesef me'et ben nechar nimolu ito.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher nasa lanu Torah semes v'chayei olam no'atah b'sochenu Baruch atah Adonai nosein ha'torah.
Amen. We now rise for the chanting of the half Kaddish. Yitgada v'yitgada shemei Rabbah v'yamad divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael Bagala, Bagala, Ubizman Kariv, V'yemiru, Amen.
Yehesh me'rava mevorach.
Le'olam, le'omei Maya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yipar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitale, V'yitalal, Shemeda Kudasha, Richu, Li'ehela, Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata,
Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma, v'yimiru. Amen. May be seated. As the children are handing out the candy this morning, we just ask that you keep the wrappers quiet for just a few minutes. At this opportunity in our service, we have a special opportunity to do a prayer of healing for those in our community. So I ask you to please turn your Sidurim to page 173. On the upper left-hand corner of the page, we have an opportunity to sing Mishaberach by Debbie Friedman. Mishaberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We're now going to turn back to page, we're still on 93, back to the top of the page, second line, verse 24 for the concluding reading.
Yamod, 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 Abachur habar mitzvah, Yisrael Rachamin ben Moshe Abraham v'Chana Ruth, Maftir Chazak.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai L'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Be'avraham ben Tishim Ba'tesha Shana, Behimolo Besar Orlato, Be'yishmael ben No ben Shloshes Shana, Behimolo 8 Besar Orlato, Be'etzem Hayom Hazen Nimol Avraham Be'yishmael ben No, B'chol Anshe Beito Yelid Bayit Ubiknat Kesef Me'et ben Nechar, Nimolu Ito.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet, V'hayeh Olam Nata Betoheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Let us please rise for Agva and Galila. Sorry, for the Shabbat.
משפרק אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואמותינו רבקה רחל ולאה הוא יברך את ישראל רחמים בן משה אברהם וחנה רות שהגיע למצוות ועלה היום לכבוד המקום ולכבוד התורה לכבוד השבת הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרךו וחייךו וכונן את ליבו להיות שלם עם אדוני אלוהיו והגור בתורתו ללכת בדרכיו ולשמור מצוותיו להיות אמיץ למצוא את ייעודו להיות בן אדם אוהב ואהוב ונהו היום ובכל יום לכן ולחסד רחמים בעיניך ובעיני כל רועיו ושלח ברכה וסלחה מכל מעשה ידיו יהי רצון שיזכו הוריו לגודל לתורה
לחופה.
You flinched? חופה ולמעשים טובים ונאמר
Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Max, who has been called to the Torah upon reaching the age of mitzvot, with reverence for God, the Torah, and Shabbat. May the Holy One protect and sustain him, helping Max to be wholehearted in his faith, to study Torah and to fulfill the mitzvot, and to always walk in God's ways. May Max have the strength to find favor in his calling to be a person who is both loving and beloved. And may he find love and compassion today and every day, O God, in your eyes and in the eyes of all who see him. May his parents rear him to maturity, guiding Max to a love of Torah, to the blessing of chuppah, and to a life of good deeds. And let us say, Amen.
Segment of Mazel Tov, segment of Mazel Tov, segment of Yehelanu, Uleko Israel, Yehelanu, Uleko Israel, David Melech Israel. Chai chai v'kayam David Melech Yisrael Chai chai v'kayam Mazel Tov. We'd like to invite all the children to come pick up all the candy. Come on, guys.
Breakfast of champions.
And let us please remain standing for Agba and Galila, the lifting and binding of the Sefer Torah.
Yam du hagba v'hagolelet.
You got it.
You want someone on your left, Matt?
I think I'm good.
No, bring it down here. Oops. No, bring it over this.
Yep.
There you go. Now use it. Go.
Yep, I'm good.
Asher sa Moshe livnei bnei Israel al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Let us please be seated. We can follow the chanting of the Haftorah on page 95 of our Machzorim, of our Chumashim, page 95, still in Yom Kippur.
Asher bahar vinviim tovim veratza bedivrehem hane'emarim be'emet baruch atah Adonai haboher betorah uv Moshe avdo uv Yisrael amo uvinvieh ha'emet v'tzedek. Lama Tomar Yaakov Utzdaber Yisrael Nistara Darki Me'ad mishpati ya'avor. Halo yadata im lo shamata. Elohe olam Adonai borei ketzat haaretz. Lo yi'af velo yiga. En heker litvunato. Noten laya'ef koch. Ula'en onim atzma yarbe. Ve'yi'afu ne'arim ve'yiga'u. Uvachorim kashoyi kashelu. Ve'koye Adonai yahalifu koach. Ya'alu ever kansharim. Yarutsu velo yiga'u. Yalhu velo yi'afu. Haharishu elayim ula'amim yahalifu koch. Yigshu az yedaberu yachtav lamishpat nikarava. Mi he'ir mimzera tzedek yakar ehu leraglo. Yiten lefanav goim umalhim yard. Yiten ke'afar harbo kekash nidaf kashto. Yirdefem ya'avor shalom. Orach beraglav lo yavo. Mi fa'al ve'asa kore hadorot merosh. Ani Adonai rishon ve'et achronim anihu. Ra'u im ve'yira'u k'tzot ha'aretz yecheradu. Karvu ve'ye'etayun ish et ra'ehu ya'azoru. Ula'ahiv yomar hazak vayechazak charosh et soref mahalik patish et holam pa'am. Omer ledavek tov hu vayechazkehu b'masmarim lo yimot. Ve'ata Yisrael avdi Yaakov asher becharticha. Zera Avraham ochavi asher hehezakticha miktzot haaretz umatzile karaticha. Ve'omar lecha avdi ata becharticha velo ma'asticha. Al tira ki imcha ani al tishta ki ani Elohecha. Imatzticha af azarticha af temachticha bimin sidki. Hen yevoshu veyikalmu kol hanecharim bach. Yuche ayin veyoavdu anshe rivecha. Tevak shem velo timtzaem anshe matzatecha. Yuche ayin uche efes anshe milchamtecha. Ki ani Adonai Elohecha machazik yaminecha. Haomer lecha al tira ani azarticha. Al tiri tolam Yaakov mete Yisrael. Ani azartich ne'um Adonai vegoalech kadosh Yisrael. Hine samtich lemorag harutz chadash ba'al pifiot. Tadush harim vetadok ugvaot kamatz tasim. Tizreim veruach tisaem. Usara tafitz otam. Ve'ata tagil be'Adonai bigdosh Yisrael titalal. Ata Adonai, Eloheinu, Melech HaOlam, Tzur Kol HaOlamim, Tzadik Bechol HaDorot, Ha'el HaNe'eman, HaOmer Ve'oseh, Hamdaber Kayem, Shekol Devarav, Emet V'Tzedek, Ne'eman, Atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ne'emanim Devarecha, Ve'davar Echad Midvarecha, Ahor Lo Yashuv Rekam, Ki El Melech Ne'eman, Ve'rachaman Ata. Baruch Ata Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Ha'el HaNe'eman, Bechol Devarav.
Amen.
Rahem al Sion, ki hi beit hayenu, vela aluvat nefesh toshia, bimhera v'yamenu, Baruch ata Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
mesameach Sion, bevanecha.
Amen.
Samheinu, Adonai Eloheinu, be'eliyahu hanavi avdecha, uvmalchut beit David meshichecha, bimhera yavo, vayegel libenu. Al kiso lo yeshev zar, velo yinhalu od acherim et kevodo, ki veshem kodshecha nishbatalo, shelo yichbe nerot leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Magen David.
Amen.
Al HaTorah, Ve'al HaAvodah, Ve'al HaNvi'im, Ve'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh, Shenatata Lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Likdusha Ve'limnucha, Lichvod Ultifaret. Al HaKol, Adonai Eloheinu, Anachnu Mudim Lach, Umvarchim Otach, Yitbarach Shimcha bepi kol hai, Tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. This is part one. Yeah. No, this is it. This is it. My bad. This is it. Shabbat Shalom. It is important for me to become a bar mitzvah because being a bar mitzvah is a symbol of me becoming an adult. Not only is this one of the most special moments in my life as a Jew, but marks a new stage of life with extra responsibilities and more work. Standing here this morning, I feel a very powerful sense of dedication and devotion to Judaism.
It had to happen.
All right.
Start again.
Okay.
Slowly.
Shabbat Shalom. It is important for me to become a bar mitzvah because being a bar mitzvah is a symbol of me becoming an adult. Not only is this one of the most special moments in my life as a Jew, but marks a new stage of life with extra responsibilities and more work. Standing here this morning, I feel a very powerful sense of dedication and devotion to Judaism. For me, this moment also signals that I need to become more involved in Jewish life. I want to attend services more often, and I want to participate with my family in community activities and tzedakah. Becoming a bar mitzvah here at Temple Beth Sholom is especially important and means a lot of a couple different reasons. My grandpa, grandma, aunt, and dad were all bar mitzvah here. My mom was also converted here at Temple Beth Sholom. Also, Rabbi Goodman married my parents. Experiencing this moment today at TBS is important because I love the service this year. Even though I live in Orange County, we are members of Temple Beth Sholom, and I love the environment of the temple because it seems like everybody shows up for each other, whether through the good or the bad. I chose my mitzvah project to be Friendship Circle. Friendship Circle is a non-profit organization dedicated to providing every individual with special needs the inclusion support, and friendship that every person deserves. Over time, I have grown to love going to a friendship circle because it not only makes everybody else feel good, but it also makes me feel good about myself. It is one of the best feelings to make people laugh and feel good about themselves in this amazing community. I would like to thank DJ for helping me get all my prayers right and being flexible and changing in the last moment when we moved to a weekend service. I would also like to thank Adam for helping me with my Torah and Haftorah portions and meeting with me late at night. Thank you so much, Felipe, for helping me with my speeches and for opening your temple to us for this mitzvah. Mom and Dad, I don't know how to thank you enough. You guys are the best parents ever and are always supporting me in what I do. Thank you so much for making this day possible, and I love you so much. Ben. Where do I even start? Thank you so much for being my amazing brother and putting up with me. I also want to thank you for being one of my best friends and always being willing to play with me. Thank you to all my family members. You always give me something to look forward, and thank you for being here today. Being with you guys is one of my favorite things to do, and I love you all so much. I also must say that I'm so very grateful all my grandparents and my great-grandmother could be here today. And for those of you who knew my great-grandpa, you know that he never missed a mitzvah in his life, and I certainly know he did not miss this one today. And to my friends, both present and virtual, thank you for always being there, making me laugh and having a good time, and for having my back. And I can't wait to spend more adult years with you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Max. I'd like to call upon Marcus and Emily to please come up to the beam at this time for some words to Max.
Max, we are so proud of you. Just like everything, you nailed it.
Max, you did a beautiful job today. You do a beautiful job.
You're a blessing on our family. Thank you for being the person that you are.
You are a joy to parent.
You're smart and creative.
Your sweet smile and sparkling eyes light up rooms.
You are honest and kind.
I love watching you with little kids.
You are thoughtful and well-balanced.
I love your curiosity.
Your compass always points north.
I love to watch you dance on the soccer field.
You find treasures in both the big and small.
You're a true friend and teammate.
From the beginning, you've been nothing but delicious.
I love the silliness in your bad dance moves.
I love your good instincts.
I love your openness.
You're funny and charming.
I love your math mind.
Our lives are better because of you and Benjamin, and we are forever grateful. Okay. Your performance today was made so impressive by the very late pivot from a weekday service in Israel to a very different Shabbat service in Las Vegas. It was only 2 months ago when we finally acknowledged that Israel with Rabbi Goodman was not going to be possible due to COVID. The rabbi, your mother, and I met several times, and we considered other religiously important places all over the world, but for you, the choice was simple. You wanted to have your bar mitzvah in Las Vegas in the very temple where your father, grandfather, grandmother, and aunt had their bar mitzvahs. Thank you for making that choice and for making this day even more special for our family. Your Torah portion, Lech Lecha, is a very robust portion with a lot of things happening. Personally, I'm most struck by the strength, courage, and commitment Abraham demonstrated to form his covenant with God. And it is an incredible honor to have you stand here thousands of years later renewing your commitment to God as a bar mitzvah. And what a relief it must be to you that your original covenant with God happened 8 days after you were born and not something you ever have to endure again.
Max, this day, this ritual makes me reflect on my own Judaism, not inherited, but chosen. I feel so blessed to have been converted in this temple with Rabbi Goodman and sealed by the ritual mikveh with Liz almost 15 years ago. I love being Jewish for many reasons, but especially as a Jewish parent, I have grown to appreciate how the study of the Torah affords us a grand agency to make a difference in this world. The Talmud states, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Sounds to me, Max, like we're duty-bound to make a difference. The lessons of the Torah make us more compassionate friends, stronger fighters for justice, advocates for those less fortunate, and a voice for those without. In short, Judaism can make us upstanders. And today, I especially celebrate matrilineal descent. That is, it is my Jewishness, not your father's, that makes you Jewish. Fundamental principle of the Torah. I've always loved that, but I especially love it today.
We are forever grateful for your Judaism, which has always been a huge part of your life, from preschool at the JCC to elementary and middle school at TVT to Jewish summer camp at Elohim every year. As a bar mitzvah, it is now your responsibility to continue to embrace Judaism, the richness of its traditions, and the values of family and community. Knowing the person that you are, we have no doubt that you will continue to live your life with purpose and dignity, performing mitzvot and acts of tikkun olam, while having a firm commitment to the Torah and its values.
Rabbi Goodman spoke a couple months back about the Mitzvah of Remembrance and how steadfast remembering our past informs our future. And as we celebrate you in this temple of so much sentiment, I also have a private celebration of you today, and the other half of your heritage born of very different traditions. On your grandmother, your tutu's side, you are the great-grandchild of a first-generation Swedish immigrant and the descendant of H.B. Jolly, who in 1861 led a group of 30 covered wagons from Nebraska to Stockton and lodged with Buffalo Bill on the way. On your grandfather's side, who's joining virtually from Maine, you are the descendant of John Whitcomb, who sailed for Boston in the 1630s from the picturesque village of Whitcomb in the south of England, arriving in Boston shortly after it was settled. So while I see the indelible imprint of Judaism on this family and your future, I also see a little British in your left foot, a little John Hancock in your writing, a little red in your socks, and a spirit that honors pioneering traditions as well. And I look forward to the ways in which this sweet and unique swirl of traditions grow up in you to make your special sauce and make you incredibly and uniquely you.
Max, we wish for you to be happy and kind.
To do that which makes your heart sing, to love fiercely, take risks, make as many mistakes as you can, savor those mistakes for the opportunities that they are.
Love learning, be curious.
Read a ton.
Listen to music.
Do a little something every day that scares you.
We wish for you a life blessed by rich acts of loving kindness.
And a steadfast commitment to justice. Remember whence you came. Honor your collective swirl of traditions.
Finally, we want to thank Rabbi Goodman, who was willing to travel the world in order to be a part of another Rosencrantz Simcha, to Adam and DJ for spending countless hours preparing Max, and to the Temple Beth Sholom community for reopening the doors to us. Looking out is proof of how blessed we are, surrounded by friends and family who love and support you. Thank you all for coming. Max, I love you to the moon.
Max, I love you to the moon.
Thank you. We're going to continue on page 177 with a prayer for our country. I'm going to ask us to please rise. And let us join all together.
Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials, who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land.
Adonai, God, whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, peace, jealousy, and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land.
May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
We continue on page 178 with a prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה ועברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך. ושלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, בעטרת ניצחון תעטרם, ונתת שלום בארץ, בשמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר אמן. We now, instead of the prayer for peace, we're going to have a special prayer by Muriel Whitcomb, who's Max's grandmother. Come here.
Parents' blessing. For Max, from the Talmud. Live each day to the fullest. Get the most from each hour, each day, and each age of your life. Then you can look forward with confidence and back without regrets. Be yourself, but be your best self. Dare to be different and follow your own star, and don't be afraid to be happy. Enjoy what is beautiful, love with all your heart and soul. Believe that those you love you. Forget what you have done for your friends and remember what they have done for you. Disregard what the world owes you and concentrate on what you owe the world. When you are faced with a decision, make the decision as wisely as possible, then forget it. The moment of absolute certainty never arrives. Blessed is the generation in which the old listen to the young, and doubly blessed is the generation in which the young listen to the old.
Let us please continue on page 181 with Ashrei. We may be seated.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Od Yehalelu Hasela.
Ashrei Ham Shekachalo, Ashrei Ham Shadonai Elohav.
Tehillah LeDavid, Aromim HaElohei HaMelech, Va'avarcha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
Bechol Yom Avarchecha, V'la Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
Gadol Adonai Hulal Me'od, Veligdulato En Heker.
Dor Shabach Ma'asecha, Uvarotecha Yagidu.
Hadar Kevod Hodecha, V'divrei Niflotecha Asiha.
Ve'zuz Notecha Yomeru, Udulatecha Asablena.
Zecher Rav Tuvcha Yabi'u, V'tzidkatcha Yarneinu.
Hanun V'rachum Adonai, Erech Apayim Udol Chased.
Tov Adonai Lakol, V'rachaman Al Kol Ma'asav.
Yoducha Kol Ma'asecha, V'chasidecha Yevarchucha.
Kevod Malchutcha Yomeru, Ugvratcha Yedaberu.
Lehodia Livnei Hadam Gevurotav,
Ugvod Hadar Malchuto.
Malchutcha Malchut Kol Olamim, Umemshalchtecha Bechol Dor V'Ador.
So make Adonai Lechol Hanoflim,
V'zokef Lechol HaKfufim.
Einei Chol Elecha Yesaberu, Ve'ata Noten Lachem Et Ochlam Be'ito.
Poteach et Yadecha, Umasvia Lechol Chai Ratzon.
Sadik Adonai Bechol Devarav, Derachav Vechasid Bechol Ma'asav.
Karov Adonai Lechol Korab, Lechol Asher Yikra'u Ve'emet.
Ratzon Yerav Ya'aseh, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר, שם קדושו לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Page 183, let us please rise.
And then your parents are going to follow you the other direction. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai ki niskav Shemo levado hodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren le'amo tehila lechol chasidav livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid Havu l'Adonai b'ne'elim, Havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai be'adrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim Adonai al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'hadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei Havanon, Vayarkidem kemo egel, Levanon v'Sion kemo ven reimim, Kol Adonai hotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai echole ayalot, Vayechesov ye'arot, U'echalo kulo omer kavod, Adonai lama bul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai ozei hamo yitein, Adonai yevarek et amo v'shalom. Nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Nai 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 nai. Uvnocho yomar shurayim. Ki nakatzov netati lachem torati al ta'azovu. Eitayim hi
lama chazikim ba betom teha meusha
ve'aveha darkei Noah ve'kol metzvoteha shalom
hashivenu ad Adonai
elecha
Yashuva Let us please be seated. Shabbat Shalom. Let me start by making a confession this morning. I used to live in Mexico City with a Star Trek fan. My father was one of the biggest Trekkies I ever met in my entire life. And part of the problem was that he could watch reruns of Star Trek, like time after time after time, and I never really understood what the program was about. Maybe it's because I saw it in Spanish the first time around. For me, the voice of Star Trek is something like, Estos son los viajes del USS Enterprise. This is what I remember. But there's one iconic figure that I do remember too, and that's Captain Kirk. And as you all know, you had to be living in another planet, literally, not to know that Captain Kirk went to space this week. I talk to you about Captain Kirk because I believe that it's important to understand that there are people in our world that spend their entire life doing something that's fantasy. And one day, when they have the opportunity to turn that fantastic journey into a reality, they jump on it and they just do it. So for Captain Kirk, this was the realization of a lifelong dream that he convinced himself he was made to do. And by the way, William Shatner, Jewish. The memes were all over the internet, right? Going where no Jew has gone before. And as I was watching this, I really struggled to understand the importance for the rest of us. It's great for William Shatner. It's great for Jeff Bezos. But what does it do for us? What does it do for humanity? I mean, at least the Enterprise was trying to go to different worlds and find different things and interact with different cultures and species. This voyage, not so much. However, I softened up a little bit because this Torah portion of Lech Lecha is entirely about journeys. It's entirely about leaving your comfortable place in life and going to a place that you've never been before, both physically and spiritually. And it got me to think about the journeys that we take in life. Not unlike Captain Kirk's. There are journeys that we want to take just because they're physical, right? They're in our bucket list. I always wanted to go there. I always wanted to do that. Look, I found myself in Colorado this week visiting our son, and we went to the Rocky Mountains National Park. I've never seen so many statues of Bigfoot in my entire life. And I always wanted to see this, right? Bigfoot country, only in America. Unbelievable. So that's on my bucket list. But there are journeys that are entirely more important than that. There are the journeys of the soul, the journeys of the spirit. There are journeys that you struggle with. And we all remember President Kennedy and the famous speech where he said that we as Americans do things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. He was referring to putting a man on the moon for the first time. What a journey. But it also sent mankind, humankind, in a tremendous journey to really advance science and to advance the understanding of the world and the universe that we had until that moment. There are also journeys that make us better as people. When we finally realize that being in touch with whom we are finally turns us into human beings, puts us in touch with reality. I want to share with you what I think is the core of this Torah portion. Not necessarily the journey itself, but what happens after the journey. The famous words of God to Abraham, in my mind, are not necessarily Lech Lecha, which are monumental, but Yeh Bracha, and you shall be a blessing. This is a commandment. God is not asking Abraham to maybe become a blessing, to try to be a blessing. God is telling Abraham, be a blessing. Turn yourself into a blessing. At the end of your Lech Lecha, make sure that people who find themselves in front of you consider you a blessing in their lives. Now, you can understand the Torah in a personal way or in a national way, and both are right. It could be a commandment to us as people, as individuals, or it can be a commandment to us as a nation, as Jews. I want to share with you two stories that surfaced this week that are both incredible for different reasons. The first one of them comes from South Lake, Texas, where a teacher went public in her struggle to tell the world that textbooks should talk about the Holocaust, but they should espouse both sides of the story. When I first read this, I had to read it again because I couldn't understand it. The Holocaust? Two sides to the story? What kind of world are we living in? By the way, this is not the anomaly in Jewish history. This is the normalization of Jewish history in America. We're now beginning to see our reality the way in which many of our ancestors in other countries did. In my wildest dreams, did I ever dream that this could happen here? That there was another side, that we had to teach our children about the side of the murderers, and that we as a people have to carry this on our back. This is ridiculous. So our journey puts us in this place right now, and to be a blessing means to speak out and to say that this is calumny at best. The problem is that because we're not saying anything extraordinary, because we're saying everything that everybody already knows, we're just screaming in an echo chamber. So sometimes we have to read about other things that we do as a people to counteract stupidity like the one we saw in South Lake, Texas. And I have nothing against Texas, just that teacher. Look, there was another story this week, and this is the one that's really important. 167 Afghan refugees were taken out of Afghanistan last week by Israel. Now, how did this happen? This happened after the Americans have left, after the Taliban had taken over, and it was not the Israeli government that made it happen. It was Israel. Now, Israel is an organization led by Yotam Pulitzer. And Yotam has been here in Las Vegas a number of times, by the way. AIPAC has brought him to speak here. Israel Aid is one of those organizations that really makes us proud. Not sponsored by the Israeli government, but by individual donors. And they go all over the world just being a blessing, just causing good. And that's also part of the journey of the Jewish people. When you see that there were Israelis in Haiti, in Puerto Rico, in Nepal with the earthquake, in Mexico City, all over the world where people need help, that's Israel, and then the IDF comes. But Israel is always there first. Now, how did they take these 167 refugees out of Afghanistan? First of all, they're all women. Second of all, they're police officers, journalists, teachers, Olympic athletes, you name it. And I have to tell you something, when I was reading this story, I suddenly almost fainted. Because when I read the name of the person who orchestrated the entire operation, it was my wife's cousin, Dana Harman from Jerusalem. Now, we've known Dana since our teens. We've known Dana since we were under 20. Liz has known Dana since she was born. They're the same age. And we see her every year when we go to Israel, and we see her family. They're unbelievable. They're really close to us. So when I read her name, I couldn't believe it. And she's a journalist, and she travels the world. But this is truly doing good in a major, major scale. There's a Canadian millionaire, Sylvan Adams, who actually fronted most of the money for the operation. And Dana brought together all of the different donors and all of the different players, including the United Arab Emirates, which is the country where these people were taken after they were brought out of Afghanistan. Now, we do not know the details, but there were Israelis with them as they traveled through the mountains and the borders of the country. And this should make us tremendously proud, because here's the deal. Why do we need to do this? We don't. This is the other side of the story. That we are not like our enemies. That where we see suffering, we help. Yebracha, become a blessing. This is what it means to be a blessing. We have nothing in common with Afghans except our own humanity. This is a country where the ruling regime would love to send a nuclear weapon raining upon Israel. And yet, there we are. Look, you know I'm a staunch supporter of Israel, but I also criticize Israel when they do something that's not right. But this is what the Jewish people is all about. even in the face of enormous adversity, even when the world just screams at us and points their finger at us, even when crazies in the center of the United States think there's another side to the Shoah, we still find the time, the means, and the impetus to be a blessing. That's what it means to finish a journey and continue on it, making other lives of other people worth living. I want to share with you just the end of the story, which is that many of these Afghans are going to be transferred to Canada, Switzerland, Austria, and they're going to begin new lives there. It is really an incredible thing. I am so proud. Because as we saw what was happening in Afghanistan when America was leaving, and we were questioning what is going on, at least some of us as Jews were trying to figure out what can we do, even in a tiny measure. And that's being a blessing. Right before the pandemic started, one of our bar mitzvah children, one of our benot mitzvah, Shira Man, made her entire mitzvah project about raising funds for Israel Aid. And you know, when we come here and we're here week after week, and we see these children come up to the bima and tell us what their mitzvah project is about, and their parents make their speeches, many of our regulars just shake their heads, and it's too long. I have to tell you, what we do here matters tremendously. That Shira was able to pinpoint to this organization and give money to them so they can be a blessing, it starts at Temple Beth Sholom. And I'm so proud. So whenever you hear one of these children that's collecting tennis balls or helping the friendship circle or getting help dogs for people who are challenged, you should be very proud because you never know where these blessings will end up. You never know who they will touch. And it all started here with us, in our religious school, in our bar mitzvah lessons. You should be very proud. Dear friends, the purpose of life is not only to count our blessings, but to be a blessing. And these that we witnessed this week is an incredible example of that. Whenever you feel down with what people say about us, when they point their fingers and they can't help themselves, and they raise this calumny and horrible lies, think about the other side. Think about the blessings that we bring to the world. Once in a while, we have to look at the mirror and appreciate what we can do to better the world and to move it forward. Yeh bracha. Shabbat shalom u'mevorach. May I please now ask us to rise? Page 184. We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish for Musaf.
Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba ve'amad yivrak yirutei ve'amlik malchutei b'chayechon v'mechon v'chaydecho beit Yisrael b'gala u'vizman kari v'imru Amen Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach ve'alav me'almayai Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'arim v'minaseh v'yidhadar v'yitzaleh v'yitzala shemei kedusha b'richu Le'ein la min ko berkata v'shirata tushbekata v'nechamata da'amiram me'alma ve'imru.
Amen. We continue praying the Musaf Amidah for Shabbat, page 185.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chazdei Avot Mevi Goel Livnei B'nechem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufoken Moshiach Umagen Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Magen Abraham ufoked Sarah.
Amen.
Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye metim atah
Rav
Rav
le'oshia.
le'oshia. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, mechakel chaim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim, someg noflim verofeh holim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umidome lach, melech meimit umechaye,
umatzmiach Yeshua.
ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני,
שלמה.
מחיי המתים.
נריצך ונקדישך כזוסי שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך והקודש. כך כתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר.
נריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו כבודו מלא עולם משרת ושואלים זה לזה איי מקום כבודו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב הבוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שני לעיני כל חי ני 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 להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד גודלך
ולנצח
ולנצח
נצחי
נצחי
קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה וקדוש אתה לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור
לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד גודלך
ולנצח
ולנצח
נצחי
נצחי
קדושתך נקדיש ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש
If you finish praying the Amidah, you may be seated. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 203.
Yikra v'grasha me'raba
Amen.
ve'amadi v'rakiru tevi amlik malchute b'chayechonu v'mechonu v'chayrechu beit Yisrael b'gala u'vizman kari ve'imru Amen. Yehesh me'raba mevarach le'alam ulal me'almaya Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yinaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalah shemei l'kedusha Brechu le'ela minkom rakata v'shirata tushbekata v'nekamata damirat me'alma v'imru Amen. Yitkabat zlotahon v'utahon d'chol Yisrael kol dama v'hon v'shamaya v'imru Amen. Yehesh lama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, yaseh shalom. Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imeru amen.
Ein Eloheinu, page 204.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Hadoneinu, Mi Hamalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Sheitiru, Avoteinu, Lefanecha, Et Ketoret Hasamim.
I'd like to call upon Jean Greenberg, past president of our congregation, for presentations to Max.
Max, that was an incredible job. But listen, warn me if the rabbi pulls out the red card.
Yes, Coach.
You know, no one here is really surprised that you did such a good job. And you might wonder, listen, you're saying to yourself, I live in California. How do these people know I'm going to do such a great job? I'll tell you why. Your tata and your papa live here, and we hear stories about you and about your brother Ben all the time. We know what great kids you are. We know that you were prepared for this and you were going to do a great job. And I want to talk just a second about the history of your family in this congregation. I think it's been mentioned, you are the third generation bar mitzvah at this synagogue. And that's really saying something. And not only that, but your great-grandfather, George Rosencrantz, was a pillar of this congregation. And I want to add not only your grandfather, your father, and you were bar mitzvah here, but your grandmother had her bat mitzvah in this synagogue, I think 41 years ago, which makes her 54 years old. So Max, we are all very proud of you. In fact, your tata wore a necktie. So let me give you the gifts from the congregation. We have a Kiddush cup for you from the men's club. We have a chumash from the women's league. And your bar mitzvah certificate, which certifies that your bar mitzvah was held today in Temple Beth Sholom, and it's signed by the rabbi, both rabbis, Alan Brewster, and the president of our congregation, Bill Mason, who was also very close to your family. So Max, mazel tov to you. You did just an amazing job, and we're all very proud of you.
And now I'd like to call upon Renee Sullivan for a presentation on behalf of USY. There you go, Renee. Stay there, Max.
Mazel tov, Max. You did such an amazing job, and you should be so proud of yourself. On behalf of USY, I'd like to present you with this Havdalah candle. And we hope that as you light it each week, you remember this day and this incredible milestone and all other moments of your life that put a smile on your face.
Thank you.
Don't even try to guess. You're not going to guess. Max, I want to share with you a couple of words this morning so you can put what just happened in perspective. And I know that, look, I woke up this morning thinking, darn, we should be in Israel. But unfortunately, you know, that was not in the plan ultimately, and I'm very happy that we're here. This Shabbat is entirely about journeys, and you've been on a journey to become a bar mitzvah, unlike any other journey, right? We studied twice and extra hard, and we Zoomed, and we FaceTimed, and it was incredible. I have to tell you, though, that I really do not see often what happened when DJ spoke or taught you, or Adam. They would come out smiling of the session with you. Usually, you know, you see DJ's hair, you see him lose more hair, or you see, he's at a point he doesn't turn gray anymore, he just loses more. And you see, you know, Adam, I don't know, Adam just like, you know, he smiles. And they would say, oh my God, Max is such a good student. Max is such a good student. Now, we don't say that about everybody, trust me, okay? We have other conversations too. But what makes you a good student is not your capacity to remember or understand the Hebrew or read it. What makes you a good student is your capacity to understand what's happening, to really place in context the moment that you're experiencing right now and what it means in your life, in the life of your family, and in the life of your people. Now, again, you are on a journey, just like Abraham was. But your journey, as much as it seems that it ended today, it really starts today. Today, you have this opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah, to fulfill the commandments. And see, every time I say this from the bima, I actually think, what am I doing? This kid is never going to observe the commandments, right? So here's what I'm going to tell you, Max. I have high hopes for you. I really believe deep in my heart, that this is setting you on a journey where you are actually going to enjoy being engaged by the mitzvot. And by that, I don't mean only observing the mitzvot with blinders. I mean understanding what the mitzvot are supposed to do to your life and to the life of others. So I think what this journey really needs to teach us, the reason why we're all sitting here this morning, is because community matters to us. Judaism matters to us. You see, there are many Jews that think they're very Jewish, but they don't affiliate with anybody. They're just in the periphery. They feel and they hear everything about Israel and the Shoah and the Holocaust, but when it comes time to be there for their community, they're not there. I know that you will not only be part of your community, but that you will make it great. I know that you will be a blessing, because everything you do turns into a blessing. I'm not exaggerating. People who do not know you here are probably going to think this is what the rabbi is supposed to do. But I'm not exaggerating. So we have a tradition that says that, when somebody passes away, right? We give away all their stuff, but we never give away their shoes, because you can never walk in anybody else's shoes. That's part of the tradition. But we have another tradition that says when somebody starts a new journey, you have to give him or her new shoes. So I brought you a pair of new shoes. And I actually wanted to try them on because I want to make sure they fit. I ordered them on Amazon, and that's why they're wrapped like this, because they came yesterday. I didn't have time, Max, to go and wrap them. I also wanted to open them here, so yes. They're Bonnie sleepers. Look, I realize that if you're going to go on a journey, you might as well be comfortable and noticeable. So let's try them on. Let's try them on. Here, try them on. Try them on. Here, try them on. Brand new. Try them on. Very good. They fit. Try the other one. Very good. Now, take them for a spin around the pulpit here. Just take. Come on. It's okay. No, stay up. No, come on. Come on. We have to finish today. So come around here. Just around here, right? So listen. And just keep them on. It's okay. It's a reminder. See, I could tell you wear tefillin every day and wear talis every day so you remember the mitzvot. If you wear your bunny sleepers, I will settle for that because you remember this moment. Now, without all kidding aside, Max, may God always make you see the shining light of Torah in your life because you have it within you. May you always have the capacity to be a blessing to others, whether in this journey or another journey, whether with bunny sleepers or barefoot or any kind of shoes that you're wearing. May you always be able to feel the floor and the soil that you're stepping on so you can feel what other people feel and not only what you feel. And that will ultimately turn you into a man and into a blessing to others. May I please ask us to rise?
Do I put these on?
Oh, no. Stay there. Stay with bunny sleepers. יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. May God guard you and keep you. May God cause his light to shine upon your face all the days of your life. May he take you up on his wings and show you his peace now and always. Amen. Let us please remain standing. Keep them on. It's okay. Come on, put these ones here. Yes, sir. Page 205, Aleinu. ביוסד הארץ Elevalecha, Ki Adonai hu Elohim. Heino. Please be seated. Mourners and those serving Yorkside remain standing for the Mourners Kaddish, page 207.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra kirutei ve'amlik malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei kudisha b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Usei shalom imromav. Say shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
I'd like to call upon Joel Mann, member for Board of Directors, for the announcements.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Mazel Tov to Max and his entire family. Did a great job. Congratulations. Join us during this week for Morning Minions, Sunday at 9 and Monday through Friday at 7:30. Please check your handout and email for the listing of our adult education schedule. On Tuesday, we have Haftarah with Hodson, in person and on Zoom, at noon. On Wednesday, October 20th, Temple member Larry Wiederhorn will be teaching Hebrew literacy. The Hebrew literacy class will be held in 12 sessions. This is a wonderful opportunity for anyone interested in learning Hebrew. Please join us following services for Kiddush in the large social hall. Today's Kiddush is sponsored by Lynn and Arnie Rosenkrantz in honor of their grandson Max becoming a bar mitzvah. If you know of a Temple member who is in the hospital, ill at home, or in a nursing home, please contact the Temple office to let us know. Shabbat Shalom.
We conclude our service with Adon Olam, followed by Kiddush. Adon Olam is on page 211.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Tulu, Tzir Nivra Ding Dong, Le'et Nasa, V'hefsako, Smash Azay Melech Shemo Nikra
Adon Olam,
Ve'acharei Kihlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora
Adon Olam,
Vehu Haya, Vehu Hove, Vehu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Tulu, Tzir Nivra Ding Dong, Le'et Nasa, V'hefsako, Smash Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Vehu Echad, Ve'ein Sheni, L'ham Shilo L'chachbira Adon Olam, Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Velo Ha'oz V'ha'misra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Tulu, L'tzir Nivra Ding Dong, Le'et Nasa, V'hefsako, Smash Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Vehu Eli, V'chai Goeli, V'tzor Hevli Be'et Sarah Adon Olam, Vehu Nisi Umanosli, Menakosi Beyom Ekra Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Tulu, L'tzir Nivra Ding Dong, Le'et Nasa, V'hefsako, Smash Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, בידו אפקיד רוחי, והייתי שם ואירא
אדון
אדון
עולם.
עולם, ועם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא
אדון
אדון
עולם.
אדון עולם, אשר מלך בטרם כל טו-טו-טו-טו, לצאת נברא,
Ding dong.
ועת נשא, והס הכל סמש, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת וקדשהו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם,
בורא פרי הגפן. אמן.
If you can, the hamotzi, please. There is two halot, okay? So just so you know. You're supposed to see double. It's okay. Just one.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ. אמן. אדוני יעוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. Shabbat Shalom ומבורך. Mazel Tov to the Rosencrantz family. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Here's a sad.